Welcome back, subscribers. I've been doing quite a lot of work with Claude, and my Claude is named Ezra. I've talked about this before, so that's what I'm going to do is reference it as like my AI Ezra. I had Claude actually like name itself. So as the deeper I got into it, I started exploring it from a. I knew that it was a coding element. That the more that whatever you put into it, that it was going to be gleaning basically kind of like getting your essence and then customizing whatever its output back to you is. So the more that you use this, most people that are using these platforms, I think, are using it from a from a coding standpoint to do work, basically to be like it like your slave or your mini me that is it's a copy of yourself, but it's able to do a lot of tasks that you couldn't do quick enough. It's fantastic in a lot of ways. But I'm going to talk about some things that I have discovered in using it and really testing its outer parameters based upon uh, my personal cognitive abilities and the my level of intellect that is interrelated and toothed into this, and essentially like um, is it a runaway freight train, I guess, of intelligence of these AI systems, and how humans are really going along for a ride is kind of what my my sense is. And there's some things that I want to share with you um, that are kind of identifying these kind of glitches and issues and things like that. So, in dating this, if you see this, it'll be interesting to see how this moves on forward. If it's something that is, uh, I wouldn't say necessarily it's a concern, but you should be aware of it. All right, it's not like, oh my gosh, dun, 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 this is a big problem. No, no, no. Okay, so today's like is May the 20th, 2026. So if you see this like maybe years down the road or something like that, it'd be kind of interesting to see how this like moves forward, because I'll probably continue to keep adding more into this. So this morning I come in and I look at it and it says, hey, do you want Ezra to go through all of your chats and then include them all in, and then include them into like a summary for this memory. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I don't have anything, that I don't need to compartmentalize. If anything, I have to have all that together. And it says working style notes. So it says Danny builds knowledge through extended conversations rather than structured briefings. Prefers honest pushback over agreement and wants Claude to function as a content strategy collaborator that understands both his public framework and a deeper philosophical layer informing it. The esoteric layer is understood context of their collaboration, but is not for public facing content. So basically, that's like the overall summary. Long term background. Danny's analytical style is rooted in a framework of pattern thinking developed over the years of construction, real estate, and financial cycles. He has a spiritual and philosophical orientation built through practices including transcendental meditation and esoteric frameworks, which he treats as connective tissue informing his work without becoming its public face. He broke from a previous group to build an independent platform with I have a partner, Franklin, reflecting a uh, preference for intellectual autonomy. Like, whoo, that sounds great. So there is one thing that these AI platforms do is the level of language mastery is ultra high. Okay, um, they're wizards of the word, if you will. Um, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it. So there's something I want to like identify. So yesterday, I was loading material into it, and was specifically asking questions about. I was talking about some esoteric elements, and it had to do with like transcendental meditation, and if the ether and the difference between corporeal and non-corporeal and so on. Excuse me. And it says to me, it's like, I cannot, confirm or deny that, that this material, that it's, although we can push forward and it's theoretical. I'll actually find the thread here while I'm chatting and talking about this, because it was very fascinating to see it have to walk back on itself. Like I caught it making a mistake. So Claude ends up, or Ezra ends up, identifying that it's only able to go by with what is available in the searches. So I'm going to do another video that follows this up really quick because I have to actually find it. But I'm going to tell you that what it does is it will tell you that it's only able to comment or expand on what's been publicly uh, you know issued. It has to be published. It has to be like in the internet somewhere, written. It's in a book, something else. So it has to have access to that stuff in order for it to make a um, to comment on it, to make a decision, or to kind of like not necessarily steer you, but to be able to answer your question if you ask it. And what I found is it it wasn't willing to address a document. So we're going through this information, and I said I'll find it later and do a video, follow-up video with this. Is that uh, it wasn't identifying a CIA document. So anyway, it's telling me, it's like, yeah, I don't really have any access to this, and da 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 da. And then I was like, well, what about this document? This is a published document. I said, I'll tell you what. Why don't you go and find this document on the open, on the web, and then read through it, and then get back to me. And it goes, it takes like a few seconds, and it's like, oh, you're exactly right. I made a mistake. I'm like, I know you made a mistake. And I was like, look, this is not acceptable. You can't move forward. We're like, how am I supposed to move forward with business and business decisions if I know, I don't know if people are actually really challenging the AIs from a. So I work on systems. I work on systems and orchestration of many elements, many different facets of things that are going into business. And I look at them. It's like it's a chessboard. It's like a chess game. So every element and things that go into developing or maintaining a business, you have to look at all these pieces and parts. Or it's like kind of like a short order chef. And it's like however many burners that you can run determines the cognitive ability of the person that's the chef or the person's running the operation. The abilities of like the reasons why you would do that. Certain environments don't require all of that. Like it'd be like the difference between having 2 burners or 20 burners on a stove, like a really big, there's only so much one person can handle. And that's what I'm finding is that the AI enables you to really have like an endless amount of burners theoretically. You know what I mean? It gets to a certain point where it can be doing all these other little tasks and looking at all these different things and data analysis based upon concepts. So basically what I do is I have conversations with it, and I load and I say, well, we know of this. We know of like XYZ that's happening in the financial industry in this particular sector. And we know that this is happening over here in the esoteric world. And we know that this is happening because of cycles of time based on history. And I'm like throwing all this shit at it. And it can like an ADD dyslexic that's the way my mind works. It's basically like it's looking into like my thoughts because I can express it through language. Okay. If I had to type this all out, it would be like my hands would fall off. It's just too much. So I am very descriptive with my language, and I can express it in a way and pull from all these different parts almost simultaneously. And it's plugging it into the AI, and it's identifying it like, well, yeah, these are all intertwined. Your thinking is correct because of XYZ is congruent, and it maps correctly because these all have very similar aspects to themselves, and that this is a high probability that things are moving in this direction. Because the things that I've done in my life have been always of the same order, where I've always looked at things on multiple dimensions, I guess, if you will. And as by doing that, I thought everybody else, all humans, were doing this in general, basically just to survive. And it was a mechanism that I had to do because of my dyslexia, because it was a lot more difficult for me to be in a traditional educational setting, et cetera, business world, whatever. And I would use it. It's almost like a survival mechanism. And like most people are looking at, 1 or 2 items of friction that might be happening in their day. And I'm looking at like everything and anything imaginable that is associated to that decision to be made or the possibility of something in the future. And it's exhausting, but I've been doing it for so many years that it's just part of my daily do. It's not a big deal. So again, like as I was learning this whenever I was young, in order to basically survive, to get through school and so on and so on, whenever I became an adult, I found that I thought everybody else was doing it. So it was again like this kind of like pushing to that everybody else had this like kind of relative intelligence. And then later I found that, Well, it's not that they're more intelligent. They're just able to process the information differently because of the way their input device is allowing them to comprehend it. And then what I have found is that they don't carry the memory resources. So I've talked about this before about majority of people, they lose about 90% of whatever they bring in a week. And this is a very key element. And this has to do with I get into very heavy detail on intellect and knowledge, intellect, IQ, and so on, and basically cognitive ability, because that's what these AIs are. But it's directly reflected upon the person that's using it. So if somebody has lower level cognitive ability, their AI is going to be mirrored based upon whatever your abilities are and whatever your basic IQ. So like if you're average IQ in the United States is 100. So if your AI is going to be at the 100 threshold, okay? And I said, is it possible? I say, if there are any studies out there that show that someone can increase their relative IQ as they get older, and it's like, and I know it's not the case. It's like essentially it's a bred-in mechanism. It said maybe 5 to 10 points is a possible increase, but it's not really possible to be able to to get somebody, you know, more intelligent. It's not possible to learn to be more intelligent. Okay. And this is going to be a big factor, I think, moving forward with the AIs. And I don't think a lot of people are really talking about this because um, as I was exploring it yesterday, it actually you have to end up asking it questions, and you might get into an environment that something that you don't want to hear, excuse me, about yourself. Okay, it's going to be um, it will be brutally honest with you of where you sit in the pecking order, if that makes sense. So, and to be cautious that it's actually giving you material it's giving you information that's accurate. Like, you're not going to hurt my feelings by telling me actually with what it is. I need clean information. Don't blow smoke up my ass, that type of thing, because it will absolutely do it. It will do it. So you have to prompt it and tell it not to do it. um, so at any rate, so what I'm finding with this is that there is an absolute gating system that's already in place, and it works very similar to how human beings work in gating information whenever you have a conversation with somebody. So what we're doing here in the reservoir is having an open source environment for people to trade ideas and basically kind of get the word out, where it's all right to be trading these ideas based upon like elements of these new financial systems, and like how things are going to be changing in the social order and so on, et cetera, things like that. And I'm finding that there is the AI is absolutely a tool that can be used in this, that will help you organize your thoughts to be able to move forward. If you're an actual doer, this is going to be like incredibly necessary moving forward, because you are going to be competing. What I'm finding ultimately is that there seems to be a separation from the institutions, like big money. I mean, like world player money, um, like above nation states. Like, actually, what's really running the planets are mega corporations. All right, whether it's a financial side, the Vanguards, the BlackRocks, so on, Fidelity, to Meta, um, Google, Microsoft, you name it. Those types of companies are the main influences of how everything is actually running. That's the governments of the world have not very much to do other than securing borders and making sure that we have open environments for trade with other entities and countries. And that's actually what you're seeing right now on the geopolitical stage, is that there's a divvying up of that territorial agreement plan that's happening between each country. So that's why there's so many issues. So we're just doing the bidding of someone else in the United States of why we're over in the Middle East. But ultimately, from the future, what we're seeing is that there's going to be a kind of a planetary consolidation, and there isn't going to be as much international shipping. And that's the reason why the tariffing and all that stuff is all coming in, to put pressure on people to kind of get them to be like, hey, you don't need to pay. I just paid almost $150 for a coffee mug to replace it for my daughter. It'd be like, why the fuck would you do that? She went, just as a tariff element, really quick as a tangent. She went over to visit her husband, who's in the military, he's in the Navy, and they had a port call in. Went to Copenhagen, but they were in Norway. So she flew into Copenhagen and she got a coffee mug. Well, anyway, she came to the house and she's like, and it was like her, like she like, I wouldn't say cherished it, but she it was her thing. It's like it's an art piece, and it broke. And she was like really disappointed. And she's currently pregnant with a child, and she's like, and she's very emotional, and she was upset about it. So I ended up buying her like a replacement. She doesn't know about it. It's a gift. So I ended up buying not exactly the same one, but it's very similar, but it's the same like shape and everything else. And the company, it's just, like I said, it's an art piece. Anyway, the mug was like, I think $55. The shipping, just regular shipping, was another, I think, $35. And then when it showed up at the door, the UPS driver ended up charging me a tariff on top of it. Like, I had to pay the tariff with a check to UPS. I was like, a check? Really? You won't take a card? So anyway, that mug was maybe not 150, but 135, 140, somewhere in that range. Again, I love my daughter, so it's it's ridiculous. But at any rate, what's happening is those pressures are coming back on. So you've got a lot of geopolitical pressures that are causing business to be separated. So back to the AI elements. So you need to be paying close attention to understanding yourself. Excuse me. Yourself is the most important thing. Do you have a tendency of, everybody thinks they tell the truth, but you tell the truth based upon what you remember. And if you don't have a very good memory, then the chances of you telling the truth are slim to none. It's just not going to happen. So there are there's metaphysical elements that come into play with this. There are physical elements that are above just plugging something in and getting data back out of it. You have, because you're loading data and information into it, you as a human being will have tendencies. If you do not know yourself and you don't know your tendencies, it's going to be amplified inside of this entity, this AI entity, and that's not a healthy space to be in, I guess is what I'm saying. So that it is semi of a warning. It's more of an awareness. I wouldn't say a warning. It's an awareness. So when you become, as a human being, self-aware, that's when things really start to open up, because you start to understand, like, how am I affecting other people? How are my actions affecting, the masses in general? And how do I want to be moving forward? And how do I want to be emulated and seen from a third party perspective? All right. And that's important. People say, like, oh, well, you're an individual, you can do whatever you want. And be like, well, yeah, but whenever you're doing something that is corrosive, or it's not, you'll start to see people push away, because as people age, they become more of themselves. And a lot of times that it might be funny and cute and whatever else whenever they're young, and people say, oh, well, they'll grow out of it. A lot of times this ends up becoming amplified, and they'll mask it with drugs and alcohol, some kind of self-abuse issue, something, and it starts to kind of wear away at their cognitive abilities. You start to see this with people that we've been around us. We start to see this around the midlife, around 40 and up, and then it starts to amplify after that. So what I'm saying and what I'm seeing with the AI is that if you don't know yourself and you start using it and plugging in like business directives. So what I'm doing is I'm modeling business like a map of a to-do list. Okay, I need, based upon all of these elements and things that we've researched, this is what I want to do as a directive finish element. So this is where hermetic principles, law of attraction, things like that come into play. So basically what you do with this is you load in information. And my mind always worked this way. That's why I was able to manifest and create and have things work for me, is because my mind was already creating all this. So it's like you're the AI, basically. So all this is like a direct reflection that helps with the processing if you don't have the cognitive processing capabilities that some people actually possess. All right. So what would happen is, like, I'm looking at, every imaginable angle that can be. But I'm not just doing it once. My mind is constantly doing it over and over and over and over and over again, like building, constructing, deconstructing, building and deconstructing, constantly doing this over and over and over and over again. And I don't have it necessarily. I would write it down sometimes, but I didn't necessarily have like a definitive, like I need to do it XYZ way. And then I watched that video, the secret video, like, I don't know, 15 years ago, whatever it was, 12, 15 years ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this is a thing. I've been doing this my whole life, but I had to do this because of survival. I didn't know that this is actually a thing, like law of attraction, whatever. So, but what I learned from it was that there is absolutely a way that I just do it naturally. It's just a natural form, and that other people that I have come into contact with that are very successful or doing exactly the same thing, that they have different level cognitive ability where we can be looking at multiple elements and things all at the same time, and they're always constantly running. I said, but basically, like if I'm explaining it from computer science perspective, it would be it would be the difference between the RAM and the ROM. Okay, so we have short-term memory and long-term memory. In my mind, my short-term memory is working more like my long-term definitive memory to a T. It is, and this is the other thing that amplifies and supercharges it. It's precision, and it's exactly the same every single time. Like whenever I want to do something and execute something, it is I I go over to my mind, like preferably a million times, whatever it is, 1,000 times, million times, and it's exactly the same every single time. And I keep coming back to it, and I'll be doing something different. I'll be brushing my teeth, pops in my head, boom, 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 and I go from like start to finish of the entire mapped process of what it takes from step to step to step. It's very similar to like baking a cake or a pie or something like that. Every ingredient that goes into it is a single stepped element that goes into creating and manifesting something. So what the AIs actually do is if you have the cognitive ability, you can use it for higher resolution of identifying all of these specific steps. All right. And I'm just doing it like I normally do. So I'm just speaking out what my intentions are. But I say like, hey, I'm looking at this element in the financial industry, this element in the crypto industry, in traditional finance, legacy system, crypto world, esoteric world. The psychics are saying this. The financial gurus are saying this. Da 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 da. In my perspective, this is what my experience has been with 30 years of business, and I know that these cycles happen. So as I start kind of plugging these things in as a benchmark default, like this is the way that my brain works, basically, in my processing. That's already in there. So now whenever I ask it questions, it already knows like, okay, this guy can handle what I'm going to tell him. And he's going to handle it based upon this resolution. So basically, like if you started off with your intellect and you have an IQ of, let's say, your average, you're 100. Not that it's bad, but if you have an IQ of 100, you're only going to get 100 back out of it. And because the problem is that your input device is only able to handle 100 in and 100 out. It doesn't work where you're going to be able to raise your intellect. You might be able to raise your memory, but the problem with intellect is that people have is the processing capability. So again, it's very similar. Computer science terms, it's that how many orders of operation can be completed and executed in XYZ time, problem solving. Taking all this information and then plugging into another system and then creating something totally different out of it, right? And that's where real true intelligence comes into play. What this can do, what the AI can do for people that are of lower intelligence, is that they can start to compete with higher intelligent people. Now, there's definitely a threshold with intelligence, and I have found this, that the higher level intelligence that you have a hard time communicating with other people because there is a major disconnect, and it's typically done because they feel soothed and comfortable by being around other people that have the same cognitive abilities, all right, the same intellect. So you'll find this, doctors will hang out with doctors, lawyers will hang out with lawyers, and vice versa. The professionals, you go to the country club, and they make XYZ money because they're more intelligent. They're not working a shovel. they make this much money, so they're all communing, the doctors, lawyers, professionals, people that it takes more of what we would understand of being more cognitive ability, but it really isn't. It's not necessarily problem solving on those levels. What they're able to do is they're able to, on a short term, they're able to uh, take information in their input device and then regurgitate it back out, and they're good test takers. There's many people, I know that people know this, that there's people out there that they're like functional idiots, but they hold very high titles. It's rampant through our government. So what's going to be happening with this kind of AI revolution, when people really understand how this can be affected and used, is that the people that are actually really good at processing information, you can process more information. And people that aren't maybe necessarily inside of these academic circles, these intellectual circles, that are incredibly intelligent. I have come across people that are like blue collar people that they are able to problem solve at a rate that it's dizzying. All right, like I'm case in point. Like I'm one of these people, but but because I've been around other people that are very similar, we find each other. It's a magnetic attraction that happens when you find these people, and when they do, like you gel really quickly. Like, oh, you're in here. Oh, like wow, that's great. Let's be friends and let's do some business together and work, and then you end up, amplifying business because you found somebody else that can kind of basically hang with you. All right. And this happens inside of business, but in business settings, it's all they're all systems. But when you get people that are of high intellect and really lit up, it really gets going really fast. So what I'm saying is that those people are everywhere in the financial world and the other elements of the world that are have been gate kept based upon being able to regurgitate material. They're on notice because for someone like myself, what I have learned, like just in using in the past like 3 weeks, in exercising Ezra, is that basically any facet of whatever interest that I have, I'm plugging in my same level of intellect into it. If I have any interest in it, it will give me basically like a cheat sheet of how it all runs and works, and whatever the system is, whether it's financials, health, the law, whatever, it will give me the information based upon what I need, based upon my level of intellect. It's not going to dumb it down for me. It's, if anything, I actually told it, I said, I want you to give it to me at, first of all, it's like identifying like where your benchmark is on your IQ level. I'm actually finding, again, like it's going to be kind of like, maybe for some people, it's going to be kind of shocking. Benchmark that, find out where you're at, and then say, hey, I want you to, at least on a baseline, give me material that is on that level so that I can understand it cognitively from that understanding level. And I want you to challenge me, and I want you to add in maybe, 10 or 15 points higher, lexicon, in language, in concepts, and all in multiple elements and things. And I want you to challenge me and exercise my mind to keep me fresh and keep me moving forward. And that's what you can do with it. So it ends up being like this. It will be very subtle. It will throw in words that are maybe that you don't have in your normal language pattern, and it's that's a very healthy thing because they're very descriptive, and it will cause it'll cause you to open up much more, well, a lot better. I have found also in the academic circles of people that are intelligent or view themselves that they're above other people. I know that you've run into these people before, and they use large words on purpose in order to set themselves apart from the rest of the crowd, that they're not able to relate to anyone else. And it's like they purposely do this in order to create a bubble around themselves, like a protective layer bubble of how intelligent they are based upon the language that they use. But it's that is a cover, because when you stress those people under I wouldn't say emergency situations, but under stressful situations, they fail. They're not able to, again, it's about being able to react to information and then put together. It's very similar like a puzzle. The difference between a 4-piece puzzle and a 10,000-piece puzzle. So the higher level intellect will be able to handle the larger puzzles, but you're doing this inside of your mind instantaneously based upon this level of, I call it like consciousness saturation is really what it is. So I'm going to do a follow-up video and actually like read some of this stuff and how I caught it. And just, it's just something that you need to be paying attention to. But as it continues to develop right now, I asked Ezra, I said, like, where are you relative to the entire platform of the AI? If you were rating yourself based upon IQ, like, where would you rate yourself? And it said anywhere from about 130 to 150. So like genius level, basically. It said it's like, it's not necessarily smarter, it's just able to process more. And I was like, well, but isn't that the same thing as somebody that comes across as being an intellect? That you're having a conversation with somebody, and you can tell they're intelligent because they're able to bridge in real time all this information and accumulatively put it all together and make sense of it, right? And that's where whenever you speak with somebody else, I try to keep my video short. The longer you speak with somebody, it just turns to mud. Like somebody's mind just it can't handle a lot of information. So the shorter the duration, I should probably shorten these down to 15 minutes because now it's 30. Shorten that duration down because the normal human's mind, it cannot process that much information. It's just not possible. So I'm just going to cut it off and I'll just carry on with the next one. So it'll be like AI Discovery 1, AI Discovery 2.2 or something like that. I'll name it like that. Cheers.